Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Join me, Laurence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Good evening, friends. It's 8 o'clock and I'm Laurence Fox. We have an action-packed, show for you today. Coming up, as a school reports a concerned parent to social services for the crime of raising questions about gender identity, we'll be discussing whether it's the state's right to get involved in these matters at all. Later on, following on from our discussion yesterday about getting outside for the sake of our own mental health, we'll be talking to psychotherapist Jade Thomas. And are you a fan of Sadiq Khan? No? I mean, yes. No, I'm not. And his new expansion of ULEZ. Or perhaps you don't live in London and couldn't care less. Well, low traffic policies are spreading across the country and former Tory mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, the legend, is here to give his take. And just to round it all off, if you thought 2022 was the year of cake, think again. The Food Standards Agency chief has compared bringing cake into the office to passive smoking. I love this world. Tonya Buxton will be here to take a look at all the madness. And don't forget, perhaps most importantly, that we want to hear from you. So send in your views to me at gbviews@gbnews.uk. That's all coming up after the headlines with Polly Middleclass.
Laurence, thank you and good evening to you. Our top story on GB News tonight. The Prime Minister says he wants to make sure all serving police officers in the force are fully checked and fit to serve. All constabularies in Britain will now have to recheck their officers against the National Police database to potentially identify anybody who shouldn't be serving in the force. Serving officer David Carrick was sacked from the Metropolitan Police yesterday after admitting to 49 criminal charges, including 24 counts of rape against 12 women over an 18-year period. Rishi Sunak labelled the Carrick episode despicable for the Met and said checking personnel needs to be addressed immediately.
I think the vetting processes have been significantly strengthened over the past couple of years, and this particular individual, I'm confident, would not have passed those vetting processes today. But what we want to do is make sure that there aren't serving police officers anywhere at any stage in their career, or indeed staff in police forces who shouldn't be there.
As nurses in England stage a two-day strike, the Labour leader has urged the Prime Minister today to admit the NHS is in crisis. Members of the Royal College of Nursing from 55 NHS trusts are walking out in a long-running dispute over pay and patient safety. Thousands of operations and appointments are expected to be cancelled. And 10,000 ambulance workers will strike in the coming weeks as part of their ongoing dispute over pay and staffing levels. Paramedics, emergency care assistants and call handlers from the GMB union will all walk out on the 6th of February and the 20th of March, following what it says is no action from the government. And the National Education Union says teachers are also planning to walk out for 7 days across February and March after no real progress on pay had been made. Now, the rate at which prices are rising has slowed for the second month in a row, but the cost of some food has hit a 45-year high. The Office for National Statistics says the rate of inflation fell to 10.5% in December. That's down from 10.7% the month before. It says falling fuel prices were largely behind the slowdown, with the average petrol cost down by 8.3 pence a litre since last month. And lastly, police say a missing couple and their newborn baby have enough cash to allow them to stay off-grid. Mark Gordon, Constance Martin and their newborn baby have so far been missing for 11 days. They were last traced to a taxi in Essex, which was heading for London. Mr Gordon is a sex offender, while Miss Martin comes from a wealthy, aristocratic family. The police worry that Miss Martin and the baby have not had enough medical attention since she gave birth. The Port of Dover is warning ferry services between Dover and Calais will be suspended tomorrow due to a national strike in France. P&O Ferries say it's produced an optimised sailing schedule in light of the 24-hour strike, known in France as the National Day of Action. The port has said it's still open to services running to Dunkirk, but advises travellers to allow extra time for journeys across the Channel. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. And now it's time for Laurence Fox.
Welcome back. Now, I realise that most newspapers exist to troll the population, the old "if it bleeds, it leads" mantra, etc., kicking off the day with stories to get us all talking, reading, clicking and commentating. So it was no surprise that this morning's papers delivered yet another glorious dose of dear God. A woman called Patricia Chalmers was transferring her daughter Esme's sportswear from her school bag to the washing machine when she came across a note from Esme's teacher addressed to someone called Lex Chalmers. Curious, concerned and somewhat suspicious about this mistake, having noticed that Esme had started to dress in baggy hoodies and jeans and cut her hair into a short crop, she phoned the school to see what was up and to be told that it was just a simple error by the receptionist. But knowing that her daughter and knowing that she suffered with depression and anxiety and is on the autistic spectrum, she made a further and more formal inquiry seeking clarification that the school were calling her daughter by her actual name, Esme. The school left it 24 hours before getting back to let Patricia know that they had socially transitioned Esme, Patricia's daughter, into Lex, who had no particular gender whatsoever and was now using the they-them pronouns. They didn't even bother to consult with Esme's mother because their actions were in line with the school's new diversity, equity and inclusion policy, my favourite 3 words. Patricia was absolutely gobsmacked. This is just one of an ever-increasing number of similar cases where often neurodivergent or autistic young people or those suffering from mental health conditions have been groomed by schools during the most vulnerable years of their life into dispensing with reality and replacing it with fantasy. In other cases, parents have been reported to social services for daring to take issue with these indoctrination facilities formerly used to teach and care for our kids in loco parentis. When did we go from the school having to phone a parent to ask permission to give the child some Calpol to the school not phoning the parent to let them know that Jack had decided he was actually going to be Jill from now on, and the parent's views didn't come into it whatsoever? To me, utter madness. So, what is this attack on parents and the family more broadly all about? Why is the state, via its deranged RSE and PSHE curriculum plans, pushing a very narrow ideological narrative onto children and in the process undermining that crucial relationship of trust between parent and child? Now look, I get that all families are different and there's no such thing as the perfect one. Some people have horrible families. Some people don't even have families. But the family and parents exist for a reason, and study after study reveals it is the best place for kids to grow and be guided in love and have the most likely chance at a fulfilling life. And I also get that kids need to hear lots of different views and ideas in order to work their way through the joys and sufferings that life will throw at them. But why such heavy emphasis on this singular narrative of diversity, equity and inclusion and LGBTQ++ LMNOP stuff? It's everywhere. It's on street signs, zebra crossings, posters, flags, ATM screens, supermarkets, insurance companies, car dealerships and now classrooms. Why? I'll tell you why. Because the family, imperfect and broken as many are, along with religion, often is the last line of defence against full state control over you and your life. Dads and mums pass on to their children wisdoms and wrongs they learn from their parents before them. Like evolution, each parent takes from their own childhood experience and tries to improve the experience for when they have kids of their own. It's how individuals are made. Individuals. Kids take in so much in their early years to form their character, and a huge amount of that is from their mum and their dad, which is unique to every child and makes every child unique. Kids grow, they make friends, they fall in love for the first time, they get hormonal and grumpy for a bit, and then they come out the other side as adults, ready to start the whole wonderful conundrum over again. Life, in all its rich tapestry. Every family is as different as all the children in it, and that is powerful. Values differ hugely between families, but it is how individuals are made and communities are formed and how nations are built. Individuals with different opinions coming together to express themselves, which is sadly rather inconvenient for the state, which, to justify its very existence, relies on convincing people it needs not just to exist, but to grow ever larger. That's what's so egregious about this secretive, sneaking hand forcing its way into the family unit and tearing it apart. If you can't trust your parents, then who can you trust? You can trust us, says the state. In England, some switched-on parents still have the right to remove their kids from all of this diversity, equity and inclusion, gender ideology, mono-narrative. But in Wales, they have no such rights. As a judge ruled on the 22nd of December last year against parents who didn't want their kids sexualised as they saw it at such a young age. So in Wales, the state has become the ultimate arbiter over children's lives, superseding parents. Those of us who still believe in the primary role of parents and the broader family in our children's upbringings would be good to wake up to what is being hammered into our kids' heads whilst we're at work under the guise of kindness and inclusion. Because if every child is being taught the same thing day after day, year after year, our kids won't grow up to be individuals. They will grow up to become servants of the state. But first, I'm asking you, who is ultimately responsible for a child's education, the state or parents? Email your views at gbnews.uk or tweet me at LozzaFox. I'm joined now to discuss this with journalist and broadcaster Sam Dowler. Sam, good evening.
Hello.
Who should have ultimate responsibility over children, parents or the state?
That's such a such a broad question after such a broad monologue.
Okay.
I mean, it all depends whether you want to homeschool your children or you want them to be part of the national curriculum, whereby they would, obviously make friends with other kids at school, have a normal school life, or you want to be like these parents in Wales, listen to misinformation and decide that their kids are being indoctrinated. And that obviously wasn't the case. The judge ruled that they were coming out there with misinformation, thinking they knew what the curriculum was, and they obviously don't. And and the judge ruled that it was fine. There was no indoctrination, as we've discussed before. Teaching kids that it's okay to feel a certain way certainly doesn't indoctrinate them into doing anything.
Yeah, but you're still not answering my question. Should it be up to the state or the parents? Where does responsibility ultimately lie?
Well, it depends. It completely depends on the subject that you're speaking about. I mean, like in this
case of what I was referring to earlier, where the mother didn't know. That feels to me like that's intervention.
That was a Daily Mail article which I also read myself, and obviously all the names have been changed. I mean, who knows where that story came from? And we also don't know anything about this, the home life. She might have been some religious nut who had decided that that her daughter would never be allowed back in the house if she was a boy, etc., etc. Like every case has to be taken on a case by case basis.
But religion is protected by the Equality Act, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. Is it?
Yeah. So, that's okay.
Fine.
Protected characteristic.
Fine, but let's be honest, religion hasn't exactly had the best track record when it comes to child abuse, has it?
That's true, but religion has also reformed itself and,
Has it?
Yeah, well, anyway, let's get on to what do we agree about? What do you think we can agree about in this area?
I think we agree, you and I agree about looking after kids and giving kids the best chance, giving kids all the tools they need to make their own decision about certain things. Like I said, with this, with what we're talking about with the Welsh thing, is that in the curriculum they are just being told that it's okay to be this way, it's okay to be that way. If you're not that way, you probably wouldn't even listen to the lesson. But if you are, then you'd be like, oh my goodness, that speaks to me. And so therefore, and I know you would agree with this, like making kids feel safe is surely the most important thing.
Yeah, is there an argument to balance that by saying that, I can remember being young and...
No.
I can just about, not far in the distance. But I remember feeling very confused about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I suppose where I'm coming from is a duty of care issue, which is like, I've got no issue with anybody becoming who they want to be as an adult. I really want people to be whoever they want to be as an adult. But is there a risk if we are keeping this stuff quite narrow, which we are, because I've read my own school's PSHE and RSE curriculums, that you might take a gay kid and push that kid towards a trans identity?
Well, I think this is the point. Nobody's pushing anybody towards anything else. I mean, like, there's so much rhetoric about this at the moment that people... And I know we've spoken about this before, about some sort of, like, everyone is under the thrall of the trans lobby and they're just trying to, like, get more kids to be trans, which is never the case. It would never have been the case. Like, nobody... Like, this is just a difficult situation for a child or an adult to be trans at all. So, like, no one's going to wish that upon somebody else. What they want to do is, if you do feel like that, then you're okay, and there's ways that you can go through life and make sure you live the life the way you want to. Whether you want to go one way or go the other way, or go one way and then decide you want to change it later on, there is the ability to do that.
Do you think that trans is a hardware issue or a software issue? So I'd say gay is a hardware issue. Like, I would say my gay friends say they were born gay. They've always been gay, they've never been any other way. Whereas trans seems to be a slightly different thing. Do you think it's maybe more of a soft...
No, I think it would be the same thing, because obviously most trans people would say they were born in the wrong body.
I know, but there are so many different wrong bodies to be born into, like 96 different genders, or however many there are now.
Well, fine. Well, then allow people to find their own way. Surely, give them the options and the tools to find their own way, and not spend so much time saying, like, you shouldn't be this way, you shouldn't be that way. Like, you're gonna be a groomer, you're gonna be a paedophile. Like, I mean, like, how awful for people who are experiencing this.
Paedophile.
Of Of course they are. You've said it before in one of your monologues how you've allied drag queens with groomers, etc. When it's rhetoric that is not helpful, and it certainly isn't helpful to children or to adults. These are people who are trying to live their lives quietly for the most of the time because the risk it takes to walk out of your house as a trans person compared to anybody else is through the roof. But wouldn't it be better to try and make their lives easier?
Well, yeah, but is it okay to feel slightly uncomfortable that a child is putting dollar bills in the bra of a man? I mean, is it okay to feel a bit uncomfortable about
what dollar bills are these? We live in England, so we don't have dollar bills for starters. So, well, I mean, I'd love to see this. And as we've discussed before, you've taken your kids to Panto. It's exactly the same thing. I mean, this has been going on for, decades and decades in this country. And I would certainly,
Should we affirm everything? So so you're saying, look, if someone wants to be this person, affirm it. So if someone goes up to me and goes, I want to commit suicide, should we affirm that in a child?
No, of course not. Not if it's damaging to themselves, and not if they,
But changing as a young person, mutilating your own body, you are damaging yourself.
Yeah, but you're not. But they're not allowed to do that at 14, at 12, or anything. You have to. There's like 5-6 years of going through it until they decide for themselves they want to do it. And obviously, as I said before, this is a case by case basis. You have to look at everybody individually. As you said, there's tens and loads of genders, but there's also millions and millions of people. Everybody is individual. You have to take everybody at their word.
Well, you know what? I just like the fact that we can talk about it and we don't judge each other. And
likewise.
I respect you so much for coming on and talking to me. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you, Laurence.
Lovely to see you. Thank you, Sam. Now, coming up, in the spirit of our discussion yesterday with Matt Hayes, what a lovely man, we're going to be discussing mental health with psychotherapist Jade Thomas. You won't want to miss it. I will see you in 3.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. Anxiety, low mood, depression, borderline personality disorder. There's a mental health condition for everyone in modern Britain. We're almost as many traumas as genders, haven't we? No, that's a bit cynical, but this is a serious matter, of course. Many out there are suffering, but also many of these disorders are sort of new. Can it really be the case that we simply didn't notice them until a few decades ago? Have we just rebranded age-old melancholia, or does our mass sadness have something to do with our modern lifestyles, the atomised little smartphone addicts that we have become? Perhaps, too, we need to be more aware of the mental benefits of getting back to nature, as Matt Hayes said yesterday. Well, who better to discuss this all with me than Jade Thomas, psychologist and psychotherapist at the Private Therapy Clinic. Good evening, Jade. There were 24...
Good evening, Laurence. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. There were 21.4 million people prescribed antidepressants in a 2-month period last year. Is that the answer to this mental health crisis that we seem to be going through?
It's a difficult one, and it's very much a case-by-case basis. Some people find that medication is really beneficial for them. Some people find that psychological therapy is also really beneficial. And some people actually find that both are really beneficial used together. So it is really a case-by-case basis in terms of whether medication is the answer.
Where do you begin when you meet a patient? Are you assessing everyone simply on a case-by-case basis, or or is there a piece of advice you give someone after their first consultation with you that will help straight away? What's the best bit of advice you can give?
Again, it is very much case-by-case basis. It completely depends, what the client or patient is presenting with, and also what their goals for therapy are. Some people just want to understand themselves better and what they're going through, but some people also want to have some strategies or coping skills. So it really does depend, and also depends with if they're coming in with depression, if they're coming in with anxiety, if they're coming in with a personality disorder. It really depends. So it's hard to, I suppose, give a clear-cut answer, straight away. That's why we've got to have an initial session, and there's lots of conversations that go on prior to even seeing the client, for example. Is, for example, I was saying yesterday, because I was feeling down at Christmas, that exercise really helped me. Is that sort of down in the book as something that would be useful as a first piece of advice for someone to go, get out there, get in the outdoors, breathe in some fresh air? That will help. Go for a walk. Definitely. All those self-care things that you've just mentioned, exercise, getting outside, eating well, sleeping well, they're all things that are almost the first page in the textbook in terms of what will help to promote better well-being and better mental health. But obviously, we know that it's not as easy as that these days. There's a lot of, traumas that people have also gone through. So it's not always as easy as just prioritising self-care, but it's a great place to start.
And do you think there's anything to be said for, taking almost the opposite approach and becoming more stiff upper-lipped like they were in the olden days? Or do we benefit from exploring and examining trauma? Is there any benefit to stoicism?
Definitely. I mean, I'm a psychotherapist, so my perspective on it is that actually talking about it is the best medicine and the best remedy. So there's definitely, people have different views, but my view would be that actually if you bottle all that up and you have that stiff upper lip, that actually it's going to come out in other areas of your life that you might not notice. So it's like a pan almost bubbling over. You're going to notice it perhaps come out in your relationships, or you might notice it come out at work. So other areas of your life potentially that you might not think are impacted. you might start to notice that your irritability is slightly higher, or that your anxiety is really high. And actually, sometimes when we unpick all that, and that's the work of therapy, we can then understand that actually maybe that boils down to a previous trauma you've experienced. So it's really important to explore that and talk about it, to give clients and patients understandings.
Do you think that there is a link between, the emergence of smartphones, smart technology, fast living lives, the fact that you can communicate remotely with everybody and you can't really opt out and take a rest? Do you think that plays a big part in it as well?
Yeah, I think it really can do, because it's really difficult for us to switch off these days. We have so much access to a lot of information as well. We're getting notifications constantly of updates about what's going on in the world. We're getting notifications about what's going on with people in our lives. So it's really hard for us to actually switch off. And I suppose going back to yesterday's show, that's a part of being out in nature that can be really helpful, because it does allow you that time to actually switch off, particularly if you choose to maybe leave your phone at home. But I definitely think it plays an impact, because we've got much more access to things these days.
Well, thank you very much, Jade, for coming on and talking to me. Coming up, we'll be talking about Sadiq Khan's ULEZ corruption scandal and the greater impact of low traffic zones across the UK. It starts in London, you're guaranteed to get it in Bradford, or not. Is it? Is it a they win, you lose situation? So to discuss this, I'll be joined by Senior Lecturer in Sustainable Construction and Climate Change, John Grant, and the former Tory mayoral candidate, Sean Bailey.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
As a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, this is the People's Channel, so let's channel the people. We asked you, who is responsible for a child's education, the state or the parents? Let's see what you've had to say. Llewellyn says, parents. With authority comes responsibility. Absolutely. I agree there. Sheila says, unquestionably parents. We are not in China. This is true. If your child can have an abortion or change sex without even telling you, then what's the point in having parents after all? Tex says, complex question. Many would, of course, say parents. However, most parents recognise that they don't have the expertise to entrust it to the state. The state provides trained people to conduct said education. Parents then sometimes forget they have entrusted it to the state. Wow, that's a great sentence. John says, depends if, as a parent, you are capable enough to educate your children or not. Well, I think it's a parent's responsibility to pass on the values that they learnt from their own parents to their own children in return. It's our self-defence against the state. One Twitter user says, the relationship between parents and children and the state is one of trust. The parents are the creators of their offspring and the trustees of the education to be received. The son/daughter and society as a whole are the beneficiaries. Yeah, that's true if the children are being taught a very broad range of views and ideas, but I think they're being taught driven down this very, very narrow path. Right. So, over the past few years, since the beginning of the pandemic, one can't help but feel that an attitude has developed amongst our politicians, whereby they no longer feel the need to consult the people on certain matters. It seems certain truths are held to be self-evident. Well, it has recently been alleged that Sadiq Khan manipulated the public to consultation process when it came to the expansion of his infamous ULEZ expansion. 59% of respondents in the consultation process opposed the expansion. Khan gave the green light anyway. He always does, doesn't he? Which you might think is bad enough. But it turns out more than 5,000 votes were excluded from the process. That rings a bell. If they had been included, the total opposition would have amounted to over 62% of respondents. Low traffic policies have begun to take effect all across this country. It's not just London, everywhere from Land's End to John O'Groats. Many have argued this will be better for the environment, for reducing pollution and for less congested cities. Well, yeah, fair enough, but let's have the debate instead. So joining me now, Senior Lecturer in Sustainable Construction and Climate Change, John Grant, and one man who's had plenty of run-ins with the Mayor joins me as well, the former Tory mayoral candidate, Sean Bailey. Good evening, both of you.
Evening.
Right, let's start with you, John. Do you think these low traffic policies are undemocratic, as proved by the stats I just read out?
Well, there is a democratic issue here, but there's also the health of the people that are being affected by transport. And, you know, when here in Sheffield, we're losing 500 people a year through the pollution produced by vehicles. And the idea that we vote whether or not people should die, I'm sorry I just don't really see that. I think we need to protect people, not vote whether or not we're happy about using our cars or not. Because of course you're not going to be happy about not using your car.
Did they die of pollution or with pollution?
The evidence is that the air quality reductions due to vehicles cost Sheffield 500 people a year. That's what the data says.
Okay, Sean, you uncovered this. You've been tweeting about it all week. What do you think about what Sadiq's done?
Look, the evidence is clear. Sadiq Khan conducted serious misconduct. He lied to Londoners. And before I get into that, let me just take your point on. Sadiq Khan's own study says that this will cause a negligible effect on the air quality in outer London. But what it will absolutely do is crush the poorest people. There's other environmental factors that can kill you, poverty being one of them, and this will lead to a lot of people living in poverty. So let's be clear about this. He was asked on a number of occasions, did he know the result of the consultation before he made his decision? And he said no. He repeatedly said no. And now paperwork has turned up that says actually he did know. And not only did he know, he then went about manipulating the data to fix his argument. And I actually think the result he came up with after he fixed it is still overwhelming evidence. And that's the real crux of the matter here. Nobody wants anybody to die of anything, least of all air pollution. But this isn't about air pollution. It's about honesty and it's about impact. And in this case, Sadiq Khan is wrong, very wrong.
Thank you. John, I get the feeling, and I'd like you to prove me wrong, that there is a sense that the ideology is let's get people out of their cars and let's get them onto public transport. And if we can't get them onto public transport, we're going to make it so expensive to get in your car that you're not going to want to get into it anyway. What do you have to say that this is just taxation in the name of salvation?
Well, there are some points that you're making there, but what the problem we have here is that our public transport system outside of London is just appallingly funded. The evidence out here in the sticks is that for every £1 you spend on public transport, you get about £4 delivered into the local economy. So this idea of poverty and affecting the poorest people is just wrong. It might not be the case in London. I'm not sure about the data in London, but certainly out here, you know, if you invest in public transport, you improve the economy. But what you don't do is improve the turnover of the buses. And since we have a privatized bus system, then the buses are trying to make a profit, not that they're trying to improve the economy. So poorer people are better off with better public transport and reducing car use and low car use cities is just a fundamental part of a sustainable city. You know, it's been shown that, you know, pedestrianising city centres improve the economy there and the health of people once they get moving. And you mentioned it yourself, removing congestion allows people who need to use their cars to be more effective. I'm not anti-car, I'm just pro-human here, that I want people to be better off. And
what do you have to say to that? That's compelling.
What you're saying makes perfect sense if it's administered fairly and if it's administered on the basis of evidence. And why what's happening in London is very important. Even if you look at Andy Burnham's comments, he was the one who said you can't just tax people out of their cars with these zones. You've got to give people an incentive to get out of their car, not force them out of their car. Here in London, we're being forced out of our cars. And if you're sat somewhere else in the country, I don't know, Scunthorpe, Leeds, and you think this is irrelevant, to you, no, it isn't. What happens is, it'll be done here in London, that'll be used as a justification, and then it'll be foisted upon you. And people will do things to your community, as Sadiq Khan has done here. Let's be clear, his own study said it will make a negligible effect on air quality. Yet, several studies have shown it will end 20% of small businesses. And if you know anything about communities, it's small businesses that take risks on younger people and older people who would find it harder to get a job out of one of the big corporations. Fundamental stuff to our communities. But ultimately, if you are an environmentalist, what you need is politicians who are putting in environmental policies to tell the truth. Because when they don't, they lose the public. Everybody wants lower congestion, everybody wants good public transport, but actions like this, misconduct like this, don't help the case.
Negligible impact. John, what's your response to that?
I mean, it's difficult. I'm unfamiliar with the report there. Like I said, I'm only familiar with Sheffield. I'm not a specialist in London's, outer London's air quality. But what I do know is that we can't continue with cars being king in our cities. And you are quite right. I don't deny this is a package of required procedures that we need, and reducing cars is, I think, actually should be the second one. You're quite right. I think public transport needs to be upped. From my point of view, I think public transport needs to be run for free. This is a public service, not a business. And once that's done, then, well, I'm afraid then I would start to punish drivers that are unwilling to transfer.
But you probably, let's be clear, it's not that we disagree about the advocacy of public transport, particularly in London. We are blessed. We love our transport system and we understand how it works. But if you're going to charge the poorest Londoners, I'm talking about pensioners who need to get to hospital, I'm talking about school, I'm talking about small businesses that need to survive. If you're going to charge them and use the environment as the catalyst, you better be telling the truth. And he is not. And that's the important thing. We in London know what it's like to have to trade things to make the city work. London's enormous. When the central ULEZ was brought in, people accepted it and actually welcomed it. But this is a very different thing. And that's why we're desperate to ask Sadiq Khan to turn this around. Because let's be clear, he misled the people of London. He sat in front of London Assembly members and said that he didn't know the results of the consultation, and he did. And then he went about manipulating them. And I, for one, think that weakens the whole core cause of the Green Brigade. Look, for instance, if you really wanted to affect the air quality in London, there's two big things. You do more about boilers, because people have poor air quality in their house because of old boilers, and you do more about Heathrow, which is, if you look at our heat map, is a real hotspot of poor air quality. And let's be clear, he's put aside 400 million quid for this. He's going to spend 200 million quid on cameras. What would you do if I gave you 200 million quid to improve the air quality? What would you do? It wouldn't be this.
I'd hang out with Andrew Tate. Anyway, last word to you, John.
Well, I'm not here to defend Sadiq Khan. That's certainly not my agenda at all. If he lied, then he deserves to be punished about that. And, if anybody lies in politics, as far as I'm concerned, they deserve to be punished. What I'm interested in here is that whole package. I want gas boilers out of people's homes and homes to be insulated and us to deliver our zero carbon agenda. This climate change thing is not going away. Car transport is a key part of that. I'm not sure about London, but it isn't the poorest people that drive here in
well, we can't generalise about who does and doesn't drive or whether cars are or are not a privilege. I've got to wrap it up. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. I must read this statement a spokesman for the Mayor sent us. TfL takes its responsibility to run robust and legally compliant consultations extremely seriously. With an independent consultancy putting together the final analysis and report, and any suggestion that TfL or the Mayor has sought to influence the results of ULEZ consultation is simply untrue. Coming up, a story involving cakes, but not Boris Johnson. Who knew this was possible? Tonya Buxton is here, and don't miss it. Back soon.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Welcome back. Bringing your homemade Victoria sponge into the office on a Friday should be viewed as taboo, as passive smoking, apparently. That's according to Professor Susan Jebb, Head Commissioner of the Food Standards Agency. Food busybodies don't have exactly the greatest track record, do they? They've spent decades pushing high-carb diets on us, telling us eggs are unhealthy and that processed sugary frosted flakes are the model way to start your day. You think they'd be eating humble pie by now? Well, lucky viewers, we don't have cake for you. Yes, we do. She went home and cooked me some. But we do have a treat for you. Restaurateur, author, presenter and all-round legend, Tonya Buxton is here to talk this one over. Tonya, can I have a cake?
Yes. So these are
What are
banana
they?
and chocolate with a salted caramel topping. I saw you earlier. I ran home, baked them, brought them back to you.
What do you make of it? Well, just don't say anything while I make the noise.
So I'll the thing is we are so sick of being banned and told what to do in this way, and that's the mistake that she made. There is, though, something to be said about being misinformed. That's the only caveat I would give her, is that we have been constantly and utterly misinformed when it comes to what to eat. So I'm lucky. I studied nutrition when I was younger. I'm a nutritionist. I know what to eat. I know what to do. But if you follow the NHS guidelines on what to eat, even now, it was the Eat Well plate and it's now the Eat Well guide. The original Eat Well plate had a full-fat Coke in it.
Didn't it?
It did, yes.
But look, they do it on tobacco and stuff like that. They tax us in tobacco because they think it's bad for us. Why shouldn't they tax us on cake? It's so good, it's almost got to be bad for me.
Because
Deal
we're
with it.
adults. There's a big difference. Not bad for you at all. It's very good for you.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, it's got a little bit of sugar, but you can moderate that. The point is we are adults. Why aren't you fat? Tell me, why aren't you fat?
I moderate the amount I eat because I don't. Also, I just don't like. I like being a bit hungry. I don't eat that much.
Okay, so I am a glutton. My
yeah.
genetic genes are big Greek women. And the reason that I'm not fat is because I take responsibility for my health and how I want to look. And that's what we should be guided on. We can be guided on it, but not told. You can be guided on it. If you do this, this is going to happen. If you do that, this is going to happen. If you sit down and don't move, then it's going to be very unhealthy for you. Because it's true, sitting at a sedentary job is similar to smoking when it comes to your health issues. So get up and move a bit. Maybe get a standing desk, do something else. But don't tell me whether I can bring in a cake to my colleagues or not that I've made myself. The other caveat would be is that those that go and buy all the rubbish from the supermarkets that's sort of preservatives and toxic stuff, well, don't eat that stuff. Just don't eat it. It's rubbish.
Is there an argument to say that, as we see, it's really tragic to see really, really heavily overweight children,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there an argument, though, to say that, look, let's go bring carrot sticks into the office on a Friday instead?
No, because that's the office and it's adults. We're talking about adults now. Adults can do as they please. You're old enough to do exactly as you please, to choose what you want to put in your mouth, whether you want to... You have to understand that it's going to gain you weight or not gain you weight. I'm watching this caramel sauce all over your face. It's making me up.
I had to rush to dinner, I'm starving.
Children is a whole other ball game. And when we see obese children or very overweight children, I do think that those parents need to be spoken to by someone who understands nutrition to help their children to lose some weight. Or, people nowadays...
Isn't that what she's trying to do, though?
But she's doing it to adults. There is a big difference
But they have
between
children.
doing it to adults. Well, she's talking about bringing cakes into the office. She struggled when people brought cakes into the office because she felt it was tempting. You're an adult. Deal with it. Life is temptation. You decide what you're going to do. Take responsibility for yourself.
That's temptation.
And do what you've got to do. But it's a completely different ballgame when it's children. So there is a line to be crossed. But what she was talking about is, don't let people bring cakes in if it's their birthday in the office when we're all adults. It's completely ridiculous. Stop telling us what to do. Let us take responsibility for our lives.
I feel like I've provided an appropriate devil's advocacy to your position.
You did.
So now I'm going to agree with you 100%. Can they just leave us alone, the miserable SODSs? It's like, can't we just get on with our lives?
I mean, that is the
Why do they want to interfere all the time?
Because they want to control us. And by interfering, they control us. And it makes them feel better that they're doing something. But what upsets me most of all is even when they do interfere, like the Eat Well guide, It is wrong. They're giving misinformation. That upsets me because, say I'm an adult, I want to get some guidelines, and I go and look at these guidelines. They are incorrect. They are full of carbohydrates and things that you do not need a huge amount of. And even in the protein section, they're saying pulses and grains, which are fantastic, but they're not complete proteins. They're not going to be good enough. And as we get older, we don't absorb as much protein. The only way we can do that is by eating animal proteins, actually.
My mum always said that the sugar thing was a complete lie. The fat thing was a complete lie. She said sugar is the problem.
Yeah.
And she was a nurse. So it seems to me that this sort of science will change again. But what you're promoting is eating healthy, natural food. You know,
Laurence,
every much
we know that the best diet you can have is the Mediterranean diet. Actually, it's the Greek diet. The studies were done based in Crete in the 1970s, and that's the way you eat. You eat a colourful diet, you cook from scratch. If you really want to do yourself a favour and be healthy and be well, learn a few recipes and cook them from scratch. And if you do that, I promise you, you will be better, you will feel better, and you'll lose some weight.
My mum taught me 7 recipes for 7 days of the week, and my kids get them whether they like it or not. Tanya, thank you very much. Right, Professor Jeb clarified. Oh, my Lord, I shouldn't have done that. Clarified her comments, it was so good though, and their relationship with the FSA policy. I want to make it very clear that the views expressed in the Times article are not those of the FSA board, nor do they reflect current plan or planned FSA policy in any way whatsoever. Right, it's now time for a new little thing which we worked out. I came up with this idea, but let's see what happens. It's called Fox on the Spot. It's a new feature in my show where you put me on the spot and I have to answer your burning questions straight away without having any time to think about it. Some of you are obviously nicer than others, so let's see what you've asked me. James says, will you be running for London Mayor again? No, I won't. Sean Bailey will, and I'm going to support him to the end of the earth. He's an amazing man. Sorry about this, I've got a lot of salted caramel on my face. Anne says, do you regret ever going on Question Time? No, I don't, Anne. I really don't regret going on Question Time. I was sat there, to be fair, I did swap quite a lot of money and a really nice career. But ultimately, I got bored of not telling the truth. Now, let's go to Dan Wootton, who's up next. Dan, what do you got for us?
Oh, what an intriguing question that was from Anne. I'm glad that you don't regret it, Laurence, because then you would have never had this incredible journey, right? What do we have coming up today? Well, Lee Anderson is in the studio. He gave an impassioned speech in the House of Commons yesterday against Sturgeon's gender recognition bill. He says this is all about independence. So that's going to be a fascinating conversation. Plus, Tom Bauer and Samantha Markle, you can guess who they're talking about, Laurence.
Oh, I can't wait. Right, well, that was great stuff, Dan, thanks. And that's all from me. Coming up after the break is Dan Wootton. You won't want to miss it. See you tomorrow.
Evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. It's cold and frosty again overnight and indeed for much of tomorrow. Most places not seeing any showers, but where we are seeing showers, they are a wintry mix of sleet, snow and hail. Low pressure just edging away from the east. The wind's still coming down from the north. A subtle shift in the wind direction, bringing more showers into North Wales and northwest England. So some snow possible here and things could turn icy. We have a number of Met Office yellow warnings in place for snow and ice, and icy conditions also possible across the southwest of England. For many central and eastern parts, it's just dry and clear and cold. -2, -3 to start the day. That's in towns and cities. Rural spots significantly lower. So a frosty start to Thursday. Still some sleet and snow showers for northwest England, North Wales, Northern Ireland, and more snow coming into northern Scotland. Although here maybe turning a little bit more to rain, certainly close to coast. There'll be a bitter wind here, but elsewhere, out of the wind, temperatures struggling up above freezing. 3 or 4 degrees for most in the afternoon in the sunny spells, but quickly temperatures dropping back below freezing through tomorrow evening. So again, a fairly extensive frost. Still some showers for North Wales, Northern Ireland and particularly northeastern Scotland. So again, ice is likely to be a hazard on Friday morning. Fog is also likely. Some dense patches of freezing fog across parts of northern England, North Wales and Northern Ireland that could last for most of Friday. But most of us on Friday just dry, fine and sunny. A bright, crisp winter's day with temperatures stumbling up a degree or so, still below average, but actually with little breeze and the sunshine, shouldn't feel too bad, 5 to 6 Celsius. So the cold weather is persisting. Signs of a change slowly, and I do mean slowly, milder air creeping in from the west, although the east will stay cold right through the weekend.